On the I Fell Into This podcast today, we are joined by Matt Cook, all the way from Canada. Matt is going to be sharing his experiences and knowledge in terms of launching, scaling, and selling his own business. So welcome along, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
No problem, all the way from Canada.
Yes.
We'll start off by introducing yourself, and obviously, generally we kick this off with, how did you fall into recruitment?
Sure. I'm from Toronto, Canada, born and raised there. I've done work all around the world, but I call Canada my home. Long story how I kind of fell into recruitment, but I have kind of an unusual path to recruitment, like most people do. I started off. I have a finance degree. I worked on Bay Street, which is Canada's equivalent of Wall Street, for about 14 years, and then I left the business, took some time off, and that's when I had my first experience with recruiting. I was looking for a job.
Okay. Yeah.
And
good experience?
No, it wasn't.
And you stayed around.
Exactly. Well, what was interesting about it was I was looking for an opportunity that was outside of finance, and I met with a number of recruiters, and they all said the same thing. They said, well, we have this compliance job or this, VP of finance role. And I said, no, I'm like a salesperson.
Yeah.
Like I'm a business development person. And they didn't ask the right questions to really uncover whether or not I was a good salesperson. Right. And I had met a guy who had just purchased a sales training company. And I was kind of doing some work with him. I wasn't even really working for him. I was just kind of giving him some advice. And I said, well, show me your pipeline of potential, clients. And he showed me, and he said, yeah, they all want to do sales training, but they don't want to invest the money until they have a full sales team. I said, well, how many salespeople do they need? I said, well, this one needs 4, this one needs 3, this one needs 7. And so a light bulb went off. I'm like, well, why don't we just find people for them and charge them? I didn't even know that's really what recruitment was.
You invented recruitment.
Exactly.
I just come up with this new
that day. I'm like, I'm brilliant.
Why has nobody done this before?
And so he said, no, I've no real interest in that. And that was on a Friday. And I remember it well because the Sunday I was playing basketball, and I tore my Achilles tendon. And which was unfortunate. However, I was in bed for a month recovering from surgery, and I researched everything about the recruitment industry. Okay. And I couldn't understand there were recruiters for lawyers and accountants and marketing people and HR people and for other recruiters, but I couldn't find any that recruited just salespeople. And given the experience I had in finding my own job, and seeing firsthand that salespeople were very difficult for companies to find, and that's my background, I said, well, why don't I just build a company from scratch? And that's what I did. From my bed, recovering from surgery, I built a website called the company Salesforce Search, and built some Google AdWords campaigns. Launched it, and 10 minutes later, I got my first phone call. I sold a $10,000 retainer to a company in Calgary. And then I was like, okay, well, now I got to figure out how to actually do this. Like most entrepreneurs,
I guess that's a quick learning curve for you.
Right. Yeah. So I quickly learned about applicant tracking systems.
Right. Yeah.
And at first I got a free one just to be able to source candidates and put their resumes in. I quickly realized that was not going to work. And I was getting more and more phone calls.
Yeah.
So within the first month, I think I had 10 roles I was working on. Wow. And a friend of mine who had just left his job, I said, well, I need some help. Like, do you want to help? And so he came, and we were working out of my kitchen for one day. And he goes, I don't think I can do this. He goes, this is a lot. Like, he goes, you get more done in a day than I think most people do in a week, which is probably true. But yeah, I ended up implementing Bullhorn,
Okay.
which was, man, this is back in 2007.
All right. Yeah.
I think the founder was like my account manager. That's how old I am.
So he was falling into that. You were falling into recruitment.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And, it was, but I think what made me kind of successful is because I didn't really come from a recruiting background. I did it the way I felt it should be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which there's, some pros and cons to that.
Well, no bad habits that you would have picked up
Right.
then that others might from agency and
Right.
taught the wrong way, perhaps.
Right. And I think that was kind of an important thing for me because everyone told me that this wasn't going to work. And, people have tried to do, recruit salespeople before, and it's a bad model and the way you get paid. And so, everyone kept telling me why it was such a bad idea, yet I had all this information to the contrary that this should be, really successful. And I experimented with different, because I didn't know anything, I experimented with different pricing models.
Okay.
Because salespeople, their compensation is tied to
Yeah.
commission and things like that. So I tried to really get creative, and I had the same answer from everyone. They said, well, that's really creative, but we'll pay you 20% of base salary or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
But it was a differentiator that got me in the door.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I built up Salesforce Search over a 9-year period. We dealt with Fortune 500 companies and right down to small, medium-sized companies and everything in between.
Yeah. Fantastic. And obviously you touched upon a lot of people telling you it wouldn't work.
Yes.
Was there ever a moment of, oh God, should I have not done this? Concerns at all, or did the fact that you got off to such a quick start make you realize no, it is the right decision?
Well, it's interesting because my experience in the investment business, because even though the investment business is perhaps seen as this glamorous thing, you're basically a sales job, right? And you build a business, just like recruitment. So you go out and you get clients and you deal with them the way that you want to deal with them, and that's what that business is. And so many people told me when I was building that business that the way I was going about it wouldn't work for all these reasons. And so I think I've always kind of looked at when people are telling me no, that's when I'm a middle child as well. So
that's a challenge for you.
Absolutely.
Do that. Yeah.
I like a bit of a challenge, and I like when people tell me that's not going to work. And I'll really, and I do my research as well. So I'm not just, jumping off the cliff and building the airplane on the way down. I'm putting the work in ahead of time to say this should work because of this. But when I hear people that have been doing it for a long time saying, no, this isn't going to work, and this is why, I really listen to them because those are all the reasons why I think it will.
Yeah.
So that was something that I overcame early on, and obviously we grew very, very quickly and I started the business at the perfect time, which was right at the beginning of the financial crisis.
Yeah.
In 2007, 2008, and we still we grew 3,000% from 2007 to 2010. So
wow. And obviously in that time, a lot of other businesses struggling. How did you differentiate yourself then to make sure that you not only survived in that period of time but thrived?
Well, I think the key was there were so many companies that were taking advantage of the opportunity to cut costs and get rid of people. And the message that I would go out to the market with was really, let's say you have a sales team of 30 people. You probably have 5 or 6 that are killing it, that are really hitting their numbers and everything's great, even in tough times. Even if things were really good, you probably have 10 that are dead weight. And so, let's look at top grading those people, right? Like there's a lot of talent on the market right now. We're meeting with them every day. You should be too. And so we found the good companies, the companies that, could kind of weather the storm a little bit. use it as a real opportunity to upgrade their talent.
Cool. Yeah, good strategy. Yeah, and obviously worked.
It did.
So yeah.
You said you did your research, but
Mhm.
still quite a big leap of faith. And when we talk to people about how they fell into recruitment,
Right.
it was still quite a big jump. And it must have been a lot of sort of belief in yourself as well, though, and the motivation to make this work.
Yeah, I think my background growing up, I played sports.
Yeah.
I was captain of a few national championship winning teams, and I just always had this mentality of if you work hard and you put the effort in, you'll get good results.
Yeah.
And so I've never really had a belief that that I was going to fail. Maybe it's a bit naive. I think as an entrepreneur, I think there's something in your brain that tells you
you've got to have. I mean,
do or die.
If you're going into it thinking I'm going to fail, then
Right.
you're going to fail, right?
Yeah.
Right. And as opposed to, and there's nothing wrong. Everyone's got their strengths. I think the strengths of an entrepreneur is the ability to stare into the abyss and say, I'm going to take that step, and whether I win or lose, fail or succeed, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to give it my all. You can easily look at the same opportunity I had, and obviously, I didn't invent recruitment, even though I thought it.
Matt Cook invented.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't invent it. I certainly wasn't the first to look at recruiting salespeople.
Yeah.
So, what was it about what I was doing and how I saw it differently that led to my success? And a lot of it was just, this should work, right? And anytime someone said why it wouldn't, I would look at what they said and say, well, I disagree with
There's
that.
a counter argument, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And I think you have to be a little bit cautious, but not too cautious. Right.
Yeah.
You have to jump in, because no one that has any success in anything in life really has success because they were half in.
Yeah.
They were all
and
in.
the more risk averse you are, the less likely you are to actually take those jumps and take that forward, because you've always got that doubt in your mind saying, "Oh, because I've been told that, because I've searched this and I've found out X, Y, Z. Those are all the reasons why I shouldn't do that, and I should take the easy life, I suppose." But you need that slightly different mentality to say, actually, because there's an A, there's a B, there's another way of doing things.
Right. And I think that I carried that through, my entire career, right? When I was in the investment business, a lot of what I talked about was risk, right? And risk means different things to different people, right? For, like, someone would say to me when I was in the investment business, well, that investment looks really risky. And I said, okay, what's your definition of risk?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Risk.
And it's going to be so different for
Exactly.
people.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, the biggest risk that most people had when I was in the investment business was running out of money.
Yeah.
Right. That's a risk. Investing in a bank stock is not a risky investment, in my opinion. And for me, going to a regular job at the time was a risk for me, a risk in terms of, my mental health. I don't think I could do it that well, working for someone else. And I've always worked for myself for the most part. And, so I don't view that as risk, because I have confidence in my abilities, and I know I'm going to put the effort in. So the output should be there. And if it's not, then obviously I've done something wrong, and I course correct quickly, but hasn't happened too much.
Yeah. No, good outlook that. And family, were they kind of supportive of you when you said you're going to do this as well?
It's actually very interesting. I mean, I've read a lot about just entrepreneurs in general, but they typically have a spouse that is either in healthcare or education.
Right.
My wife works at a big trauma hospital in Toronto, and absolutely, I can say with 100% certainty, I would not be able to do what I do if it wasn't for her, because she works crazy hours at the hospital, and what she does, I could never do. I'd be in the fetal position in the corner if I saw some of the things that she sees on a regular basis. But the fact that she had, kind of a stable job that allowed me to do my things, it just wouldn't have been possible without that.
Yeah. It's important to have that element of support as well, right? Yeah, you need that. Yeah. Cool. Okay, that all sounds good. And um, obviously, you said you with what you got on, you grew big. You grew quite quickly.
Yes.
Did when you first looked at doing this, was that always the plan? Did you want to get to be really big? Did you want to scale, grow, sell?
I mean, for me, what I've learned about myself now, like now that I'm on the wrong side of 50, is I enjoy the building aspect of business. And at the time, it grew so quickly that I didn't really think about it.
Okay.
Within 6 months, I had 2 or 3 employees. I can't even remember how many placements we made in the first year, between 50 and 60 placements.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I was still kind of figuring things out, and cash was coming in. And then it wasn't until maybe about a year where I started to really think about, okay, because I could have easily stayed as a independent entrepreneur and probably made decent money. But it was at that point, like a year and a half maybe, that I decided, no, let's really try to scale this thing. That's when I started making some key hires of people that I thought could really help me do that. And that's when we really started getting strategic about everything we were doing, because a lot of it was just trial and error.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think this could work, and so we tried.
Yeah.
So a year down the line, you start to develop a playbook of how you wanted the business to go forward.
Yeah, and because it was a lot, there was a lot of information that we had at that point, and that's why I'm a big believer of kind of year-end planning and reflecting on the business, and because I kind of said, well, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? What changes would I have made? And then I really did just say, you know what, let's make a go of it. We weathered like the real storm, because by now it was like 2009. Middle of 2009, and the economy was starting to turn, and we had some pretty big names as customers. We had Coca-Cola and Apple and Johnson & Johnson and IBM, and
not bad names.
Pretty good list of clients, and I had some really good people that worked for me. We had made a significant investment in inbound marketing. That's when I found HubSpot in 2009 and became a partner to them. And so it was very difficult to compete with us, because we had made just the commitment to scale, the commitment to our systems, our playbooks, and we made some key hires that really allowed us to do that.
And key hires, what were they exactly?
So in the first year, I had hired 2 recruiters to support me, because I was bringing in a lot of roles, and it just for support. And then I hired my first salesperson, my first business development guy. And at first it was going to be, okay, just bring in the roles and then we'll have a support team. And then I quickly realized that the salespeople that I had hired did a better job of evaluating the sales talent. So we made a big shift to make it a 360 desk. Okay. We also changed the compensation structure, because at this point, our investment in our inbound marketing campaigns had really paid off, and we were generating somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 leads a month for our team. Yeah. So it was an excellent recruiting tool for ourselves to say, you don't have to make any cold calls here. We give you leads. And you can build your practice that way. So that ended up, really, so just those few kind of hires and quickly realizing, okay, here's a shift that we should do in terms of the direction of how the desk is to be structured. That was really what led us to kind of take off.
Interesting. And when you spoke with the team about those changes, then was that well received? How did that go with them?
Yeah, actually it was.
Yeah.
The idea basically came from 2 of the guys.
Oh, okay.
They said, look, no offense to the resources that we have, but we can identify, the people faster and do a better job of it. And it was one of those things that as you're growing a business, it's an unfortunate part of growing a business that when you're growing so quickly, you have to make changes, and they're not always the most pleasant things to do, but they're the right thing for the business.
Yeah.
Right. They might be uncomfortable for you. They're certainly uncomfortable for the people that get affected. But it was the right thing to do for the business.
There's always going to be tough conversations along the way, right? You're not going to go on that journey without a tough conversation.
Right. And, but it totally made sense. They understood the direction that we were going. And then from there, it really focused everyone in terms of what their role was. We changed the compensation structure accordingly, so that it really worked out in our team's favor, and the company's favor as well.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's good. And then from a when it came to sort of sale, then how did that come about? Was it you?
Yeah.
You knew at that point you wanted to sell?
So I had mentioned before, we had made this big investment in inbound marketing, and I had a few other. We were, back up a little bit. Profit Magazine in Canada is kind of like the Inc. magazine in the US, and they have this list every year of the fastest growing companies. And we were fortunate enough to make it. We were number 4 in 2010. I think we were number 19 in 2011. Some very big names were on that list as well, like Shopify, for example. So, we started having customers come to us and say, "How did you grow so fast?" And I would explain, well, you have to do this thing called inbound marketing, which no one knew what it was at the time. And, I was talking to the owner of another recruiting company, and he said, "Well, explain it to me." And so I explained, you have to have good content and a good website and, lead nurturing and all that kind of stuff. And after about 10 minutes, I could tell none of this was, and
way over his head.
And he just said to me, he said, he goes, I didn't understand a word you just said, but I know I have to buy it from you.
Right. Okay.
And he goes, "How much does this cost?" And I just said, "It's, $10,000 a month."
Right.
And he goes, "Okay." And then he referred me to other staffing firms.
Okay.
And so suddenly we had a business that was doing $500,000 a year, just based out of the recruiting business. And so then our recruiters also had that in their toolkit that they could sell to clients as well, because we were talking about salespeople, and inbound marketing is really supporting the sales team and providing them with leads. So it was a nice kind of tie into our recruiting service. And it really, it wasn't really a decision. I got to the point where that was growing faster than my recruiting company.
Right. Yeah.
And if I was being really honest, that's kind of what I was really passionate about. It's not that I wasn't passionate about recruitment, because I loved recruitment. I loved changing people's lives. I loved helping companies grow with key hires and strategically picking the right compensation structures and things like that. I really enjoyed that. But at the time, that was kind of the golden age of inbound marketing. And so I was really at a crossroads, because I couldn't manage both. It was getting to be, I was working nonstop, and I wasn't doing either business a favor by doing that either, because I was not as attentive, and I was probably making mistakes, if I'm being totally honest. And so I had a company in Toronto that had tried to recruit basically everyone that ever worked for me, because they were trying to build out this sales division for their business.
Yeah.
And I knew someone that knew the owners, and so I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, would they be interested?" And he goes, "Let me call you back." He called me back in 20 seconds, and he's like, "Yes, they're interested." And I said, "Okay, make an introduction." And so we had a conversation, and I said, "Look, cards on the table. I could, promote one of my guys. There's a lot of things I could do, but I think what's best for the business is that it gets rolled up into a larger organization where the guys can feel supported, and the company can kind of get taken to that next level that it deserves. And so it was quite, it's funny. You always hear about, acquisitions or mergers, and it's all this back and forth.
Yeah.
It was quite amicable.
Right.
And we basically said, look, this is what we think is fair.
Yeah.
This is the timeline. And then we kind of planned out what a transition would look like. And, I told the guys, and that whole process took maybe a few weeks.
Really?
3 to 4 weeks, maybe.
Wow.
Start to finish. Well, it was already, I'd made the decision.
Yeah.
Right. And I talked to a few other companies as well.
Yeah.
Some people I knew that had interest, but I felt this was the best fit.
Okay.
For the team at the time, and then continuing on.
Yeah. And so 3 to 4 weeks for that transition. Did you stay on with the business for a period of time after that then, or was it a complete kind of, that was it?
No, I stayed involved from a few perspectives. They wanted this new company, which was called Sales Hub, to support the recruitment business.
Yeah.
So continue to do the marketing that we were doing, because that's what was driving the success. So they were one of our clients from that standpoint. And then obviously as a result of that, I was still interacting with the team and the people, and referred them business. And a lot of people still know me as the guy from Salesforce Search, right?
Yeah.
So, and the company's still growing, and they've
great story.
So I'm really happy for the business, because I don't think I would have done the same justice that they've done to it. And I was able to grow and scale Sales Hub to basically the same end, which was awesome. A company from the US acquired it in 2019.
Oh, nice.
So happy with the decisions you made then in hindsight?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to beat myself up too much.
Yeah.
I mean, you could always look back and you go, oh, yeah,
what ifs, and
maybe I could have done that differently, but to be honest with you, from start to finish, the beginning of my journey into recruitment, I never thought I would be in it. To be honest with you, just like a lot of people, that's why I love the name of the podcast. But I still find myself, almost 20 years later, still in the business, because it is something that I'm passionate about, and because I've seen the impact it can have on people and organizations, and I just love the people within the industry.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. What a great journey, great story, and obviously the business is still thriving and doing well now, which is great. And I think that was a key point of what you said as well, is that you wanted to sell it to the right business as well. You didn't just want to sell for the sake of selling. It seems like you wanted to sell to the right business that could take it to the next level almost.
Right, because there was one company that was interested in acquiring it, and they wanted to basically just roll it into their existing brand, treat it very much the same as they treated everything else. And so, if anything, it might have been they were acquiring it to get rid of a competitor rather than, continuing on with the work that we were doing, which would have been, I wouldn't have felt right with that. Plus, there are employees that were involved, and, I wanted to do what was right for them at the time as well. And I really thought that the company that acquired us, they had everything in place for my people to thrive as well.
That's good.
Which was a big deal.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. You talked earlier about still having a passion for recruitment. I suppose as we move on, the next stage is what you're doing now.
Right.
And that passion for recruitment, you're back in recruitment world, I suppose.
Yes.
Tell us about you talking about wanting to work with other recruiters and helping them on their journeys. So give us a bit of an insight into what your world looks like at the moment.
So my world now is basically talking to a 20-year-old version of me, starting the recruitment
Is that a good conversation?
Yes, it is. I start every conversation. So I work with recruitment owners and CEOs, and I tell them I'm trying to help you not make the mistakes that I made. And it's your business. You run it the way you want.
No son wants to hear that from their dad, though, do they?
No one does. And just like I didn't want to hear it, right? Yeah. I think I started off by saying everyone told me I was doing something wrong, and I didn't want to listen. So, but I understand there are certain things that definitely I would have done differently. And would have handled differently or thought about differently, knowing what I know now. And so in my current role, it's a blend of a lot of different things, from, part, psychologist, part business mentor, but really just, trying to help them, because I understand you can get pulled in different directions. And so hopefully what I can provide is perspective on, okay, you can go down road A or road B. Road A, this is my experience. Road B, this was my experience. Not trying not to tell people this is the way to go, but just saying here are the potential consequences if you go down this road versus that road. And one might be riskier than the other, but the payoff might be more. But
helping to inform those decisions.
Right.
And going back to, I suppose, what you talked about earlier about, everyone saying, no, you can't do this. There's always another way. At least if you're not saying the no's, at least here's my experience that says this may be the best option for you. Right.
And I think one of the things I didn't mention was I was incredibly fortunate to have a gentleman get introduced to me. His name is Dr. David Emery, and he'll love this. So he's a medical doctor by training. He ran a very large healthcare service organization. It was the first service organization to get ISO registered, which is a big deal. And I remember the first time he met me, and he learned about my business, and he said, he goes, I don't think you really know what you have. And I said, excuse me? He's like, yeah, he goes, I don't think you really know what you have. And he goes, because you don't have business processes to really define it. And then he called me on a Saturday morning and said, come to the office. And I said, well, I have 3 kids. And he's like, I've got my kids. And he goes, bring them to the office. They can play underneath the desks. And so I did, and we sat in the boardroom, and he made me write out how we did everything.
Right.
Literally, it was the first documented business process for my recruiting company. It was on this long roll of brown paper.
Right.
And he ripped it off at the end and handed it to me. He goes, okay, put this into a document. And I did. And that was probably the only reason that we scaled as quickly as we did, was we documented processes. And so we had a standardized way to do everything. And whether or not it was the right way or the wrong way, it was the way that we did it. And we constantly looked to improve and change things like that, to make them better. But when you joined our company, we had a way of doing things, and you did it that way. And so one of the things that I'm trying to do with the companies I work with now is really instill that discipline of, documenting your processes so that you have, like a book that people can reference, so they're not saying, well, what do we do in this situation? You know what to do because we've done it before. And so whether or not they're going down the right path with a particular strategy, I'll give them my input, and they can go down and figure out what the outcome looks like. But how you go about doing that is really what I'm interested in, and helping guide them, because most of the companies that I'm working with, they want to scale. Right. And scaling is incredibly hard when you don't have business processes and it's not documented, and you don't build it into your culture. So that's the one thing that I would say is kind of, it's just, it's a non-starter. If you don't want to talk about that, it's going to be very difficult for you to scale your business. Companies have done it. but they get
got
to
a
a
bit
certain
lucky.
point, and then they're going to have to take a step back before they can get to the next level.
Yeah,
because you haven't got those same standards running throughout a business. It's not future proof because the history isn't there. That this is how we do things, this is why we do things, and this is the way that you do things going forward. If you've got too many elements to that aren't following those processes, then you've not got that standard throughout your business.
Right, and I kind of use the example of IKEA furniture, right? My wife has a chair from IKEA. I have one. She follows the instructions. I don't. Mine doesn't look right, and have pieces left over, and she doesn't.
We're getting into stereotypes here, aren't we?
No. This is just my wife. This is just me and my wife. She's better at doing things like that. And entrepreneurs in general, because you're an entrepreneur, that's not really how your brain thinks. You just want to kind of get things done. But and that, like I said, you can get to a certain point by doing that. But you're not going to ever get to any great scale unless you build out those processes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things I find when I speak with people who are looking at doing this, and it's a mindset change from that they need to adapt from being a recruiter in an agency to being an entrepreneur, and they need to kind of adapt that. So when you're speaking with these people, obviously to kind of fold to this question, but one of the things recruiters hate the most is admin. Right. And obviously that mindset shift from agency recruiter to entrepreneur. So do you find any challenges when you're trying to say about these processes, implementing these processes, or is it received because they understand what they need to do to get to the level they want to get to?
I think for the most part it's well received, but it's certainly not natural.
Yeah.
Right. Like I always say, there's a certain way you cross your arms, and if you ask someone to cross their arms the other way, they have to think about it a little bit. And that's kind of what it's like, because when you've come from an agency, there are a lot of things that are just done for you, and you kind of take them for granted or forget that they're being done for you. And now it's your business, and these are the things you're responsible for. And I always talk about, you have a certain number of hours a year. You have 2,000 hours a year. Okay. How do you want to spend them?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And every hour you spend doing things that are not structured is taking away from time. And time is literally money when you're an entrepreneur. And you don't have more of it. You can't produce more time.
It's one thing you can't buy.
Right. So eventually, sooner or later, you have to buy into that mentality of, I need to structure this a lot better. And that's the challenge when you first are starting out, because you have nothing but time. You have time for candidates, you have time for prospects, you have time for everything, but eventually that runs out.
Yeah.
And that is so important, that you are spending your time doing the right things, especially early on. Right. When you're building your business, it's very easy to get drawn into the things that don't really matter, I suppose, the fluffy things. And if it's not going to work for your business, if it's not bringing you in clients, candidates, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, I used to have a saying, is if you can't quantify it, then why are you doing it? Right. And same thing with, we had metrics around everything. And I know sometimes people get tired of metrics and all, but how else are you going to measure whether or not something's successful or not? Like, I knew if I spent $1 on our marketing, what that meant in terms of ROI. So if I spent $2, I knew what it meant. I knew what that meant from an operational perspective. I knew what it meant from a profitability standpoint. I knew, how many new people we needed to hire based on the metrics that we had. And that's another thing, I don't necessarily say that you need to set up all your metrics, from day one, but eventually you're going to have to, and you should be tracking everything that you do, because like you said, you can do a lot of busy work and make yourself feel like, man, I'm really busy. But at the end of the day, you haven't accomplished much. And like I just said, like, time is money. And if you waste a week on things that are not going to produce revenue, it can be a bit challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great insights there for anyone. Obviously, particularly looking at that scaling and growing. Yeah, they need to implement these, or think about implementing these aspects as soon as possible, really. Then. Yeah.
And not everyone wants to scale.
No, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's fine too. And I think that's the other thing. I think in society in general, you have the Forbes list of and all these CEOs that are famous and these young kids, and I think it's great. But you don't have to aspire to be that.
No,
you can be a great solopreneur and have a great lifestyle business and do the right thing for clients and candidates, and you don't have to have 400 employees. Like that's you don't have to do that. And I don't think we celebrate that enough. And there's a lot of great people that have great businesses that you probably haven't heard of. But they're doing great things for people.
Because you're still working with solopreneurs as well, aren't
100%.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people that their aspiration is not to grow it and scale it and sell it. Their aspiration is to do this for a very long time and make an impact. And I think that's very noble. And I think that's a great thing. We should be celebrating that as well.
Absolutely. And with those solopreneurs, then, how does what's the difference you bring to the table then in supporting them? Because obviously it's not so much about the strategy for the scale, grow, and all of that stuff. So what are you helping with them with from that side of things? What they're looking for then?
Well, I think the big thing is I have a long leather couch, and I tell them just to lie down. No, I mean, I've built businesses by myself, and in the early days, it can be quite frustrating and lonely. And so I'm like a sounding board. Right, for them, and also someone to celebrate their wins.
Exactly.
I had a gentleman yesterday send me a note saying that he had closed a deal, and he would just because he's by himself. So he can tell me, and he knows I'm going to say congratulations, and
having those people to bounce off.
Right.
Exactly.
And if he's got an idea in the middle of the night that he's like, am I crazy? Should I really do this?
Well, we've talked before in this podcast about solopreneurs not being solopreneurs. It's about having those people around them that are helping them to build their business.
And I had mentioned, the gentleman I had helped me, and he was a great advisor for me over my career, and we still talk, and we had lunch not too long ago, and I'm a big believer in giving back, and I had clients of mine that would come and talk to me about their business, and almost not break down, but talk to me saying they don't have anyone to talk to. Right. So I like the fact that I have that ability to be that sounding board and just that person that they can come to and say, hey, I was thinking about this. What do you think? Or, I had this candidate, and here's how, I was positioning it with the client. This is what the client said. What do you think? Or how would you have handled that? And, I give them my opinion, and ultimately at the end of the day, it's their show. And I tell them that. But you have to know, if you go down this road, this is the potential, blowback or, opportunity. And that's all I really try to do.
What advice would you give to anyone who's thinking about setting up their own recruitment business then?
I mean, of course, I'm going to say you should do it because I think, kind of having your own business and being your own boss, not only is it's such a great thing to do, but you learn a lot about yourself. If you want to learn a lot about yourself, start a business, especially in recruitment. And because I think you do a lot of good for people. You do a lot of good for companies. Companies in a lot of cases don't do this well. That's why recruitment exists. And so the ones that appreciate that, you're having a huge impact on the company. You're having a huge impact on the candidates, and it's an incredibly fulfilling role to be in. And I know a lot of people sit at their desk working for a big recruiting company, going, "I know I can do this. I can do it better, and I do it like this." Then go and do it. Right. The one thing about recruiting, and I'm a perfect example, is that the bar to entry is pretty low. You can hang a shingle, anytime you want and do it. It's hard. It's a hard business, and it's hard to grow. But it's certainly a very, very rewarding business.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, obviously, you learned a lot about yourself. What did you learn about yourself then that you didn't know before you started your own business?
Well, I think, I would have, obviously I've always had a lot of confidence in my ability in general, and a lot of it's just kind of blind confidence, not backed up by anything. But I think I learned about what I really enjoy doing. I really enjoy taking something from nothing and building it. And I've done it 3 times now. And people always ask, "Oh, it's great, you sold 3 companies," or whatever. But that wasn't that's the outcome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The exciting thing for me is, okay, you're starting with like a slab of clay and you're molding it and you're shaping it, and then the finished product happens because of all the work you put in, and that's what's exciting for me. And I learned that, especially as I get older, I learned that I really enjoy kind of helping others with that, because it's something that I didn't necessarily have until I met some really good mentors for myself. And so that's something that I didn't realize I would get as much enjoyment and fulfillment out of until now. But no, the people that you meet in this industry are just fantastic, and some of the best people you'll meet.
Yeah, awesome.
So one of our questions we ask everyone: if you hadn't fallen into recruitment, what would you be doing?
Jeez. I mean, there are days I think, man, I would still be on Bay Street in the investment business, but that's a tough business to be in for 40 years.
You've had sort of different career paths anyway. But
well, little known fact, I probably, to be honest with you, would be a chef.
Oh, really? Okay.
My last name's Cook, but when I was younger, I worked in a restaurant, and the restaurant I worked at, I was a dishwasher. I was 13 when I was hired, and I think I just turned 14, and 3 of the line cooks quit mid shift. And the chef said to me, he goes, "You look capable. Get behind the line." And I was cooking sole almondine, and I had no idea what I was doing. And at the end of the night, he goes, "You did a great job. You're going to do it again tomorrow." So here I am, 14 years old, and I was working the line at this very busy restaurant. And I did that, paid for my university, and it's become a real passion. And I host dinner parties where I make these elaborate meals, 5 to 7 course meals.
Nice.
So
we'll book the flight.
Yeah.
What's the signature Matt Cook dish then?
Actually, the signature thing I do is I have a theme to every meal.
Okay.
And sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. And I try to create a theme and make food that people wouldn't normally or ordinarily eat or make themselves.
Yeah.
So I've made some very exotic things like kangaroo and camel, and some very simple things. But it's all about exploring food and their origins and the history of it. And so it's when you eat at my house, it's very much like a history lesson.
A history lesson as well.
Yeah. So so I really enjoy that, and I've got a real passion for it. And for me, it's also my my stress relief.
Yeah.
It stresses my wife out when we're having people over. But I said, "Don't worry."
Said everyone stays out of the kitchen while you're in there.
Yeah.
That's my domain.
That's your domain.
100%. Yeah. I don't want any help except for the dishes.
I
definitely want help with the dishes. And
I did enough of them when you were 14.
And I do make a big mess when I cook. But I'd probably be a chef, to be honest with you.
Excellent.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And what do you think of obviously as a chef yourself then of UK cuisine?
It's certainly a lot better than the reputation that you hear. But I mean, especially in a city like London, it's like Toronto, very multicultural. So you can get just about anything. Last night I had ramen from across the street from a hotel, but I've had some incredible curries here. So it's pretty good.
That's good to hear. That's what we want to hear as well. Yeah.
You can stay.
Yeah. No, also thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Great discussion. I think a lot of people will have got some really good insights into strategy and planning and scaling a business, basically. Yeah, brilliant.
That's great.
Thanks
for having me.
Cheers.